There is a special kind of silence that comes when a killer realizes he is being killed. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of despair, the silence of recognition. When a professional sees professional work and gives it its due, even in the moment of his own death. His name was Ray. Just Ray. No clan, no family, no past that anyone could use against him. One name like that of an object, like that of a tool, which in general reflected the essence. For 20 years, he had been the best killer in the world of Sangha, a world where strength decided everything and where 9 great clans divided power like pieces of bread at a feast. 20 years with not a single failure, not a single target that got away, not a single contract that went unfulfilled. He killed clan lords and their heirs, killed generals and magisters, killed men guarded by hundreds of fighters behind fortress walls with multi-layered barriers and protective artifacts bought for entire fortunes. It didn't matter. Ray always found a way, because he had a gift. Not magical, not spiritual, nothing that could be classified and entered into the registry of the Association of Practitioners. Simply the gift of seeing the world as a system of vulnerabilities. Every person, every fortress, every defense had a weak point. You only needed to look long enough and patiently enough. Ray knew how to look. The Shadow Clan, the organization he had served for the last 7 years, paid well and asked no unnecessary questions. The ideal employer for a man with no name and no past. So Ray thought. Until tonight. Mountain Pass, Sarim. Altitude 2,000 meters. Wind that cuts through skin through clothing. The moon covered by clouds. Darkness almost complete. He was returning from an assignment. Target eliminated. One of the elders of the Black River clan. A man who had been collecting information on several lords and thought it was safe. Not safe. Never safe to know too much. Ray walked the pass alone. Always alone. No escorts, no assistants, 32 years old, light as a shadow, with that particular way of moving that makes no sound on any surface. He sensed the ambush 200 meters out. Didn't see it, didn't hear it, sensed it. That feeling which experienced fighters call by different names. Sixth sense, combat intuition, call of the blood. Ray called it mathematics. Too many variables had changed simultaneously. Wind direction, distribution of shadows, air temperature. Someone was waiting ahead. Many someones. He stopped, assessed, behind him too. So, from both sides. To the left, a drop of 300 meters. To the right, a rock face. A classic trap, done cleanly. He himself had done it this way hundreds of times. Ray stood motionless in the darkness, thinking. Who? Why? How they knew the route? 3 questions. The answer to the first came immediately. Only the Shadow Clan knew this route. So, his own people. The answer to the second, fear. For 7 years, he had carried out their work and grown stronger with each contract. Had reached the level of the Abyss, the highest tier of combat arts practitioners, one of 9 in the entire world. The clan feared that one day he would become uncontrollable. Right to fear, the answer to the third, unnecessary. It didn't matter how they found out. What mattered was what they had done. Betrayal. Ray, a voice from the darkness ahead. Male, calm. He recognized it. Sohan, first advisor to the head of the Shadow Clan. A man with a merchant's smile and an accountant's eyes. No need for sudden movements. There are 42 of us here. 12 of them are at the Void level. Void level, 1 tier below the Abyss. One-on-one, Ray would have killed each of them. 12 against 1. Different mathematics. Sohan, said Ray. Long in the planning. 3 years. Without embarrassment. We waited until you reached the Abyss to make sure further growth was impossible. A pause. Unfortunately for you, it is possible. The absolute level is theoretically attainable. We cannot afford an asset that may become a threat. Logical, said Ray. Thank you for understanding. But you made a mistake. Silence. Which one? Asked Sohan. You gave me time to think. What followed was not a battle in the conventional sense. Ray exploded. Not metaphorically, literally. The abyss level means control over one's own combat energy, Kai, at a level most practitioners called impossible. Ray, over 20 years of training, had found methods of application found in no textbook. The first 3 seconds, darkness became his ally. He moved not toward the exit, not breaking through the ambush. He dove into the blind spot between the two groups and vanished from the field of vision of all 42. The next 20 seconds he worked. Not killing, no time for clean work, disabling. Joints, Kai points, nerve clusters. A man is taken out of the fight for several hours, and that's enough. 7 men in 20 seconds. Then he sensed it. Sohan was smarter than he appeared. Between the rock face and the position of the rear group, an archer, 1. Hidden in a crevice such that Ray, with his perception, only sensed him when he had already fired. The arrow, not ordinary. Artifactual, with an acceleration that gave it a speed invisible to the eye. Ray dodged, almost. Almost in his line of work meant the arrow entered below the left shoulder blade, not the heart, but deep. And the artifactual tip was unfolding inside, releasing poison into the bloodstream. Ray felt his left arm go numb, kept moving. Knocked the archer out of the crevice. Broke through to the edge of the cordon. Through it. 2 at the void level. A serious fight lasting 3 minutes, 1 more wound to the side, less critical. Got out. Drop on the left, 300 meters. Ray jumped. He fell and thought, clearly, precisely, without panic. The poison was spreading fast. His left arm was already unresponsive. His right was weakening. His legs, another minute. 300 meters at his rate of fall, about 8 seconds. Key. 1 final burst, an attempt to slow down. Not enough to fully stop it, enough partially. Below, rocks or forest, impossible to see in the darkness. He thought about what he hadn't managed. Not about revenge. No. Not about self-pity. About the fact that he hadn't managed to understand one thing, what all of this had been for. 20 years of killing on other people's orders. For what? He found no answer. The ground struck him. Forest, trees cushioned the impact. But the poison had already done its work. The last thing he felt? Cold. And silence. That particular silence. Of recognition. Consciousness returned like dawn. Slowly, from the edges. First smells. Incense. Expensive, heavy. Lacquered wood and something floral. Not forest, not blood, not mountain air. Then sounds. Voices behind a wall. Female, young, worried, male, older, with that commanding intonation that requires no effort, it simply is. Then the body. Ray tried to move his hand. The hand moved, but wrong. Too light, too small. He opened his eyes. Ceiling, high, with molding. A canopy over the bed. Silk, burgundy with a gold pattern. The bed, large for an adult, enormous for a child, which he apparently was. He lay and looked at the ceiling. Thought methodically, without panic. Panic is a waste of time. Facts, he was dead. Poison, fall, the end. Now, a different body. Small, a child's. A different place. Expensive. The smells, the interior spoke of money. Big money, old money. Not merchant, aristocratic. He turned his head. A window. Beyond it a garden. The garden well tended with trimmed trees and stone lanterns. The style, Imperial East, classical. Not the Shadow Clan. Theirs was different architecture, heavier, more enclosed. He got up, his legs held, small legs, in silk socks on a wooden floor. He walked to the mirror on the opposite wall. Looked. A boy of about 10. A face beautiful, well-formed, with that well-bred precision found in children of old lineages. Black hair, dark eyes, small for 10, even small. Ray looked at his reflection. 32 years of experience in the body of a 10-year-old child. Interesting, he said aloud. The voice. High, childlike, unfamiliar. The door flew open. A woman. Young, in servant's uniform, with a tray. She saw him standing at the mirror. The tray nearly fell. "Young master." She set the tray down on the table and rushed over. "You've regained consciousness." 3 days. "We were so worried," the physician said that. "Where am I?" Ray interrupted. The woman fell silent. Looked at him with that expression people have when a child speaks in an unchildlike way. "Young master, you are in your chambers, in the main palace of Clan Ashi." Clan Ashi, Ray remembered. Clan Ashi, one of the 9 great clans of the world of Sanka. They have ruled the eastern provinces for 300 years. Specialty: combat arts of the heavenly stream style. Powerful, traditional, proud to the point of arrogance. And longtime enemies of the Shadow Clan. A cruel irony. "What is my name?" he asked. The woman looked at him with growing anxiety. "Young master, you don't remember?" The physician warned of possible confusion after the fever. Her voice trembled. "Your name is Kai. Kai Ashi, the only son of the head of Clan Ashi, Dao Ashi, heir to the Empire of the Eastern Shore." Heir? Kai Ashi, the only son of the head of one of the 9 great clans. Ray looked at his reflection in the mirror. A picture began to take shape in his mind. Clan Ashi, enemies of the Shadow Clan. Powerful, wealthy, with an army of practitioners and resources, with access to information about all 9 clans. The body of an heir, legitimate access to training, resources, teachers. 10 years to grow up, to become stronger than he had been, to return. Ray looked at the servant. "Bring food," he said. "I need to recover my strength." The woman nodded hurriedly. Ran off. Ray returned to the mirror, looked at the 10-year-old boy with a killer's eyes. "Wait," he said quietly. Not to the servant, not to himself. To the Shadow Clan. To Sohan with his merchant smile. To everyone who had stood on that mountain pass. Wait, the clan head came the next day. By then, Ray had already settled in. Studied the chambers, understood the layout of the nearest wing of the palace through questions to the servants framed as childlike curiosity, and gotten an initial picture of the state of affairs. Clan Ashi was going through a difficult period. 3 months ago, the current head's older brother had died during training maneuvers, officially an accident. The Shadow Clan? Possibly, he noted it. Kai, the only heir, 10 years old, had fallen ill with fever the week before, 3 days unconscious. Everyone thought he would die. He didn't, but now behaved strangely, in the opinion of the servants. This needed to be corrected. Not entirely, Ray had no intention of pretending to be an ordinary child, but enough so as not to cause alarm. Dao Ashi entered without knocking. Tall, nearly 2 meters. Broad shoulders under the clan's ceremonial robe. A face hard, with those wrinkles that come from constant clenching of the jaw. Dark eyes, the same as Ray's in the mirror, so they resembled each other. Ray determined the level of his practice immediately, automatically, as naturally as breathing. Void, upper boundary, strong, most likely one of the strongest in the clan. He stopped at the bed where Ray sat, looked. A long silence. The physician said you don't remember some things, Dao Ashi finally said. The voice, as Ray had expected, used to commanding. Some things I remember poorly, said Ray. But it will pass. You speak differently. The illness, said Ray. Probably. Dao Ashi looked at him. For a long time, with that expression of a father who sees something has changed in the child but cannot name what exactly. Kai. He sat on the edge of the bed. Heavily, not physically, differently. Like a man who lacks practice at being a father. You frightened us. I'm sorry, said Ray. Neutral. You need to rest for a few more days, then you'll return to your lessons. Teacher's son was worried. Teacher's son, the heir's instructor in combat arts. He noted it. I want to begin lessons earlier, said Ray. Dao Ashi raised an eyebrow. You just survived 3 days of fever. Exactly for that reason. Ray looked at him directly, not aggressively, calmly. The illness reminded me that time is not infinite. I want to train more seriously than before. Silence. Dao Ashi looked at his son. At the child who a week ago whined when the teacher extended lessons by half an hour, now asking to start earlier after a fever. "Very well," he said after a pause. "In 3 days." He stood up, stopped at the door, without turning around. Kai. Clan Ashi is not just a name, it is an obligation. He spoke to the door, not to his son. Perhaps he didn't know how to speak to his son face to face. "You understand that now?" "I understand," said Ray. Dao Ashi left. Ray lay and thought. 3 days. Much can be done in 3 days if you know exactly what needs to be done. First, assess what had been inherited from Kai's past. What level of practice, what skills, what potential, he checked with the inner gaze. A technique he had mastered at the abyss level, the ability to see one's own energy channels. And was surprised. The key channels in Kai Ashi's body were unusual, not developed, a 10-year-old child, beginning level, less than most students his age. But the structure of the channels was different, more complex, multi-layered, as if the body's innate potential had been designed for something greater than standard practice. Ray thought about this for a long time. Kai Ashi's body had a potential that no teacher had yet perceived. Because they didn't know how to look, Ray knew. 20 years of studying combat energy at a level most practitioners considered theoretical. And now he saw in the body of a 10-year-old heir what no one else could see. "Interesting," he repeated, what he had said yesterday looking in the mirror. This time with a different intonation. Teacher Sun was 63 years old, and over those 63 years he had trained 18 practitioners to the void level, which was a record among instructors not only in Clan Ashi, but across all 9 clans. He was a good teacher. Ray determined this in the first 10 minutes of the lesson. A good teacher is not one who knows a great deal. It is one who knows how to look at a student and see not what he wants to see, but what is actually there. Teacher Sun looked precisely that way, attentively, without preformed conclusions. "We'll begin with the basic forms," said Sun. They stood in the training hall, large, with a wooden floor and racks of training weapons along the walls. "Show me the first complex of the heavenly stream." Ray thought for a second. In Kai's memory, the technique was there. The boy had been studying for a year with Teacher Sun, knew the first 3 complexes, basically with mistakes, as children are taught. He performed the first complex correctly. Not perfectly by Ray's standards, but correctly. He removed the mistakes that Kai had had, kept the stiffness of movement appropriate to the body's age. Teacher Sun watched, said nothing. "Again," he said. Ray repeated. "Kai." Sun stepped closer, stopped 2 paces away, looked. "You corrected the mistake in the 3rd position." "Yes." "I hadn't corrected it in previous lessons. I thought about it myself, during 3 days of illness." "Yes." A long silence. "Show me the 2nd complex," said Sun. Ray showed it, again cleanly. Not showily, not perfectly. Simply without the mistakes that Kai had had. Teacher Sun walked through the hall. Slowly. Kai. He stopped at the window, his back to Ray. "In a year of training, you were unable to perform the 2nd complex without a mistake in the 8th position. The illness passed 3 days ago." A pause. "Explain," Ray thought. Too fast. Too obvious for an experienced instructor. Teacher Sun is a good teacher, which means he will notice any inconsistency, which means don't conceal it, manage the information. "While I was unconscious, I had dreams," said Ray. "I saw how to move, as if someone was showing me from within." Sun turned around, looked at him. "You dreamed of technique?" "Yes." "At 10 years old?" "Yes." Sun stepped closer, leaned down so their eyes were level, looked for a long time. "Kai Ashi," he said quietly. "I have trained 18 practitioners to the void level. I have seen many gifted children." A pause, "But not one of them had such a look as you have now." "What kind of look?" asked Ray. "The look of a man who has already understood everything." Sun straightened up. "I don't know what happened to you during these 3 days, but good." He nodded. "We continue." The first 2 weeks Ray worked methodically. He didn't rush to demonstrate his capabilities. Each day, a small improvement. Slightly better than yesterday, enough for the teacher to see growth, not enough to raise suspicion. In parallel, he studied the clan, not spying in the sense he would have spied before, simply watching, listening to the servants' conversations, asking questions a child could ask without suspicion, studying those who came to the palace. The picture formed gradually. Clan Ashi, strong but with cracks. The death of Dao's older brother 3 months ago had divided the elders. Some considered it an accident. Others, and this was the truth, saw the hand of the Shadow Clan. Dao Ashi knew it was no accident, but couldn't prove it, and couldn't respond without proof. Having no right to start an open conflict between the great clans without the sanction of the Imperial Council, Ray thought about this for a long time. The Shadow Clan killed the brother of the Ashi head. Clan Ashi wants revenge but has no means. He is in the body of the heir of a clan that is a natural ally in his own revenge. Fate, or a system of vulnerabilities. Call it what you will. The result is the same. After a month, Teacher Sun announced an assessment trial. Standard practice in the clans. Once every 6 months, students demonstrate progress before a council of instructors. For the heir, more important than usual, the elders watched. Ray was not preparing for the trial. He was preparing for what would come after. The night before the trial, he didn't sleep. He sat in a meditation position and worked with the key channels of Kai Ashi's body. What he had discovered over the month was remarkable. The channels were not merely unusual. They were multi-layered in the literal sense. The standard practice system had 3 levels of Kai: surface, middle, deep. In most practitioners, all 3 were of standard configuration. In Kai's body, 4 levels. The 4th, utterly deep, dormant, untouched. Over 20 years of practice, Ray had heard of this in theory. The 4th source, a legendary potential that appears once in a generation. It allows one to reach the absolute level, that level beyond the abyss that Sohan had spoken of as theoretically possible. No one in Clan Ashi knew about this. Ray knew. At the trial, he demonstrated the 3rd complex of the heavenly stream. Cleanly, confidently, with a speed and precision that for a 10-year-old child with a month of intensive practice was unexpected. The council of instructors watched in silence. Dao Ashi had come as well. He stood by the wall. After the 3rd complex, Teacher Sun said, "The 4th." Ray performed the 4th, which they had not yet been taught. Silence in the hall. "Where did you see the 4th complex?" asked Sun. "In the archive," said Ray. 3 weeks ago, I asked permission to enter. I read it and memorized it." "You learned a technical complex from a written description in the archive?" "Yes." "And reproduced it correctly on the first attempt?" "Yes." Sun looked at him for a long time, then turned to Dao Ashi. The head was looking at his son, with an expression Ray had not yet seen on that face. Not commanding, not cold. Something different. More complex. "Continue," said Dao Ashi quietly. After the trial, Teacher Sun asked Ray to stay behind. The hall emptied. They stood facing each other, a tall old man and a small boy. "Kai," said Sun, "I will ask you one question. One. And I ask that you answer honestly." "All right. Who are you?" Silence. Ray looked at the teacher. Sun looked at him without fear, without accusation. Simply asking. Like a man who sees more than he says and wants to verify whether he sees correctly. "A good teacher. I am Kai Ashi," said Ray. "The only son of the clan head. The heir." A pause. "But I am also someone else. Someone who remembers things that one should not remember at 10 years old." A long silence. "A second birth," said Sun quietly. "Not a question, a statement." "Yes. I have heard of such things. Once every few centuries." He looked at Ray. "Who were you?" "A practitioner." A short answer. Truth and not the whole truth simultaneously. "Of what level?" "The abyss." Sun's expression didn't change. He only took a deep breath, exhaled slowly. "And now you're in the body of a 10-year-old child with a potential you yourself do not yet understand?" He spoke quietly, weighing each word. "What do you intend to do?" "Become stronger than I was," said Rei, "and finish what was left unfinished. Revenge. Justice." A pause. The difference is small from the standpoint of results. Teacher Sun was silent for a long time. Kai. He used the name for the first time without official tone. "I do not know who you were in your past life. I do not know what was done to you." He looked directly, "But I know that you now are my student, the heir of Clan Ashi. And if you will allow me, I will help you become what you can become in this life," Rei thought. Trust is a vulnerability. He knew this better than anyone. But Teacher Sun knew more than could have been expected. Already knew. Had already decided not to tell others. Had already offered his help. "All right," said Rei. "But one condition. Speak. No one must know. Not the clan head, not the elders." A pause. "Until I myself decide that the time has come." Sun nodded. "Agreed," he said simply. 3 years is much and little at the same time. Much, if every day you work with the intensity Rei had set from the first month. Little, if you remember what lies ahead. Teacher Sun turned out to be the finest instructor Rei had ever met, and he had met many. Not because he knew more. In some things Rei knew more than he did. Because he knew how to build a system. He saw where to push, where to ease up. He sensed when a student was tired and when he was pretending to be tired. With Rei that didn't work. He didn't pretend. But it was valuable nonetheless. By 13, Rei had covered a path that for most gifted students took 7 or 8 years. Initial flow level, reached in 3 months. Middle flow, 8 months. High flow, 1 year and 4 months. Beginning of the void level, by 13 years old. Teacher Sun watched this and said nothing. Because there was nothing to say, the mathematics were impossible by standard measures. Rei didn't think about impossibility. He thought about the next step. In parallel, the clan. Over 3 years, Rei had studied the structure of Clan Ashi better than most of its elders. Not through official documents, through people, servants, guards, merchants who came to the palace, junior practitioners who didn't watch their tongue around a child heir. The information built into a picture. Clan Ashi, stronger than it appeared from the outside. 3,000 practitioners, of whom 200 were at the void level, 8 at the level of high void. Finances stable, with a good base in the trade of the eastern provinces. Allies, 2 minor clans in the north and 1 major clan in the west. And a weakness. Dao Ashi was a strong head, but a poor politician. He knew only how to command, not how to negotiate. Part of the elders quietly dissatisfied. Not treasonously, simply seeing no future in his style of rule. That too needed to be corrected. Not now. Later. With his father. More difficult. Dao Ashi watched his son's progress with the expression of a man who doesn't know how to react to something beyond the bounds of his experience. He was proud. Rei could see it. He was troubled. Rei could see that too. One evening, Rei, 13 years old, was sitting in the garden with a book on clan tactics when Dao approached. He sat down nearby, silent for several minutes. "Sun says you've reached the threshold of the void," he said at last. "Yes." "At 13. "Yes." Silence. Kai. Dao spoke toward the garden, not toward his son. The same old habit. "I don't know what happened to you 3 years ago. The illness changed you." A pause. "You became different. Not worse. Different. I know. You sometimes look at people as..." He stopped. "How?" asked Rei. "As if you were counting them. The way one counts weapons." Rei considered how to answer. "I can change that," he said. "No need," Dao answered unexpectedly. "It's just..." A long pause. "Kai, the Shadow Clan killed my brother. I know this but cannot prove it." His voice became different, hard, with that pain one holds in a steel grip. "I want you to know this, because one day you will be head of the clan, and then this will be your decision." "I already know," said Rei. Dao looked at him. "How?" 3 years ago, I began gathering information. Simply, without explanation, a long silence. Dao Ashi looked at his son, the 13-year-old who had spent 3 years gathering intelligence. Good, he said at last. Just good. Tell me when there is enough. When there is enough, Ray agreed. In the 14th year, the first real battle, not training? Real. The Silver Mountain clan, one of the minor clans south of Ashi territory, officially neutral, unofficially, receiving money from the Shadow Clan in exchange for information about the movements of Ashi practitioners. Dao found out. Decided on a small raid, a demonstration. Take the chief informant alive, obtain evidence. Quietly. He asked Sun to put together a team. Sun suggested taking Kai. Dao refused at first, then agreed when Sun explained the level. The raid, 12 practitioners at the Void level, and one 14-year-old heir who officially had not yet reached the Void. Unofficially, already in its middle. Ray moved through the raid in 2 states simultaneously. First, familiar, a professional killer with 20 years of experience. He assessed the terrain, enemy positions, withdrawal routes automatically, as naturally as breathing. Second, new. The body of 14 years responded differently than the body of 32. Speed higher. The young body with superior potential gave a speed he had not possessed in his past life at this age. But endurance, less for now. Kai reserved deeper than in peers, but not what it would be in years to come. He noted it, adjusted his tactics. The informant's estate, small, on the outskirts of a mountain settlement. Guards, 20 men, 5 of them practitioners at the initial flow level. No threat to a team at the Void level. The threat appeared unexpectedly. When the raiding group entered the grounds, from the darkness of the estate emerged not 20, 40, double the guard. Someone had tipped them off. Ray sensed the ambush 15 seconds before it began. Managed to warn the group commander. They managed to disperse. The battle, fierce. 40 against 12. But the levels were different. The Void practitioners from Clan Ashi worked professionally, neutralizing, not killing without need, moving in coordination. Ray worked differently. Not because he wanted to show off, because in a real battle the body itself found the right way. 3 practitioners at the middle flow level tried to take him in a pincer, standard tactic against a lone fighter. 2 from the front, 1 coming from behind. Ray in his past life had developed a countermeasure for this situation around the age of 20. He called it internally the shadow in the corner, a sharp break not forward and not backward, but at an acute angle to the movement of the 3, into the blind spot between them that exists for a fraction of a second while they readjust their positions. He applied it. A fraction of a second, he struck the farthest of the 3, the one coming from behind, at the key point on the wrist. 1 strike. The directed channel closes for several hours. The practitioner loses access to Kai. The remaining 2 lost their formation. 5 seconds to readjust. 5 seconds was enough. The 3rd strike, the last of the 3, neutralized. He glanced at the field of battle. 10 seconds. His 3 opponents, neutralized. The rest of the group was still fighting but already winning. The group commander, an experienced practitioner of High Void, stood 3 meters away and was looking. At Ray, the informant was taken. On the way back, the group commander, Guyon, walked alongside Ray. Silent for a long time. "Kai Lord," he said at last. "Guyon Lord." That strike to the wrist. The 3rd opponent. Yes, that is the technique of Kai channel blocking. A pause. I know of only one school that teaches it. The School of the Deadwind. He looked at Ray. A closed school. It exists outside the 9 clans. Another pause. Where did you learn this technique? Ray thought. I read about it in the archive, he said. The Clan Ashi archive contains no materials from the School of the Dead Wind. Then somewhere else. Silence. Kai Lord. Gyan spoke slowly. I have served Clan Ashi for 20 years. I have seen Head Dao in battle. I have seen Teacher Sun. A pause. Neither of them at 14 neutralized 3 middle flow practitioners in 10 seconds. Then I learned quickly, said Ray. Gion looked at him for one more second. Quickly, he repeated, and said nothing more until the end of the journey. Dao Ashi received the report from Gion. He read it that evening in his study. Read it slowly, twice, then sat for a long time. Then summoned Sun. Sun came, sat across from him, remained silent. He knew how to be silent in the right way. You knew, said Dao. Not a question. From the first lesson, said Sun. 3 years of silence. 3 years of keeping an agreement. With him. Yes. Sun looked directly. Dao Lord, your son is a rarity the likes of which has not existed among living practitioners in the last 200 years. Perhaps in all 300. A pause. A second birth with full memory of a past life as a practitioner of the abyss level. In a body with the potential of the fourth source. A long silence. Who was he? Asked Dao. He didn't say in detail. He said, a practitioner. Said, the abyss. Said there is something unfinished. Revenge. He called it justice. Dao stood up, walked through the study, stopped at the window. Who killed him in his past life? I don't know exactly, Sun paused. But I have a suspicion. Speak. The Shadow Clan. Simply. The only clan that specializes in eliminating powerful practitioners. And the only clan with sufficient resources to eliminate someone at the abyss level. Dao stood at the window. My brother, he said quietly. Possibly one and the same enemy, answered Sun. A long silence. I want to speak with him, said Dao. A conversation in Dao's study. Evening. Ray, 14 years old, sat across from his father. For the first time they looked at each other as equals, not father and child. Two people with a common enemy. Sun told me a little, said Dao. I want to know more, Ray thought. Information is a resource. Sharing a resource is worthwhile when the benefit of partnership exceeds the risk of disclosure. Dao Ashi is a strong ally with a motivation that coincides with his own, and the father of the body in which he lives. The Shadow Clan, said Ray. Yes. In my past life I worked for them. 7 years. Simply. Without detail. When I became too strong they decided to remove me. They set up an ambush. I died. And were reborn here. Yes. Why here? In the body of my son. I don't know, honestly. Perhaps coincidence. Perhaps not. Dao looked at him. You know their structure, the Shadow Clans. 7 years ago I did. Much has changed. But the basics, yes, positions, connections, methods, that is valuable. Yes? Kai. Dao spoke slowly. You are my son. Regardless of who you were before, you are my son now. A pause. I will demand nothing from you. But if you wish, Clan Ashi is not just me. It is 3,000 practitioners, resources, connections, allies. He looked directly. You do not have to do this alone. Ray sat and thought. His entire past life. Alone. By choice, out of necessity, out of professional logic. Now. I need more time, he said. A year. Maybe 2. To become strong enough. To become smart enough. A pause. The strength will come. I need the right strategy. Dao, for the first time in their conversation, almost smiled. Not broadly, just barely. Good, he said. 16 years old. Ray stood in the training hall and looked at his reflection in the polished bronze shield used as a mirror. He hadn't grown much. Kai Ashi's body was of fine breeding but not tall. But he had changed. Not a child's face anymore. Not yet an adult's, but no longer a child's either. A threshold. He assessed himself professionally. Level of practice. Mid-void. By standard classification, an achievement for a 25-year-old practitioner from a gifted family. At 16, no such precedence in Clan Ashi's records. But that wasn't the main thing. The main thing. The fourth source. After 2 years of working with it under Teacher Sun's guidance, The beginning of an awakening. The first layer of the fourth source had opened 3 months ago. This gave not simply an increase in Kai, it gave a qualitatively different control over energy. Standard Kai, brute force, like a river you direct into the right channel. The Kai of the fourth source was different, fine, precise, capable of taking forms that ordinary Kai could not hold. Like the difference between an axe and a scalpel. Ray spent 3 months studying this distinction. He reached a conclusion. With the fourth source, his past techniques needed to be rewritten. Not because they were bad, because they had been created for the instrument he had then. A new instrument demanded new techniques. He began to develop them. Teacher Sun observed this process with the expression of a master blacksmith watching a student independently invent a smelting technique the master himself had only read about in theory. "Kai," he said one evening after a lesson, "what you are doing with the fourth source is not described in any text of Clan Ashi. I know. You are inventing technique. Adapting old ones to a new resource," Ray corrected. "For most practitioners, that is the same thing." Sun sat on a bench by the wall. He watched. "Do you intend to write this down?" "In time. This could become the foundation of a new school." "In time," Ray repeated. Sun nodded. Didn't press. He knew when not to press. At 16, something else important happened. Guests arrived. Clan Jade Peak, one of the 9 great clans. Located in the north, specializing in defensive techniques and artifacts. A neutral clan. Historically, they had not waged war with any of the 9 for 100 years. A delegation of 7 arrived. Officially, trade negotiations. Unofficially, Ray determined this at the first dinner. By the way the delegation's head looked at everything around her. Reconnaissance. They were studying Clan Ashi. The head of the delegation, a woman. Around 40, in the garments of a second-rank head of Clan Jade Peak. Level of practice. High void, close to the boundary of the abyss. She moved like someone who never wastes a single motion. A professional. At dinner, she watched Ray. Not intrusively, simply watched. After dinner, Dao kept Ray behind. "Lion Ho," he said. "Deputy head of Clan Jade Peak. I saw her. High void level. A scout under the guise of a merchant." "Dao?" A pause. "Yes?" He nodded. "Jade Peak has been studying us for half a year. This is the 3rd delegation in a year." He looked at Ray. "I think they want an alliance." "Against whom?" "Against the Shadow Clan." Dao spoke quietly. "Jade Peak lost 2 elders in the past year. Officially, illness. In fact, elimination. The Shadow Clan is expanding," Ray thought. The Shadow Clan is expanding. Which means in the 6 years he had spent in this life they had grown stronger. Logical. Without the threat of him, they had worked more freely. "I need to meet with Lian Ho," said Ray. "You?" "Me, simply." She came not only to study the clan's finances, she came to study people. A pause. "I want to know what she sees." The meeting took place the next day. In the garden. Not in the official hall, in the garden. Lian Ho was walking alone. Ray came out from a side path as if by chance. Not by chance. She knew it. He could see that she knew. "Kai Ashi," she said. She wasn't surprised. "I was waiting." "Lian, madam." A bow. "Correct, for an equal in status, not for a superior." She noticed. "Sit," she said. She indicated a bench by the pond. They sat. Silent for a minute. The pond reflected the sky. Somewhere deep in the palace, Dao's negotiations with the trade portion of the delegation were underway. "You are 16, said Lian Ho. "Yes. At dinner yesterday, you determined my level of practice within the first 3 minutes. I saw how you looked." She spoke evenly. Most practitioners at the void level cannot precisely determine the level of high void without a special diagnostic technique. "Most," Ray agreed. "You are an exception." "Sometimes." Lian Ho looked at him. "Kai Ashi, I have read the reports about you. Your progress in practice is anomalous. Your behavior is atypical for an heir of your age." A pause. What are you? The heir of Clan Ashi. And more. Ray studied her for several seconds. A professional, intelligent, a neutral clan with motivation. The Shadow Clan had struck them too. A potential ally. A person with a long memory, he said. That is a beautiful way of saying second birth. Yes. Silence. Who were you? She asked. The same as Sun 3 years ago. Direct, without circumlocution. A practitioner. The same as to Sun. Abyss level. Lion Ho's expression didn't change. Only a second's pause that betrayed the information was unexpected. The Shadow Clan killed you. Yes. And now you are the heir of their chief adversary. She looked at him. The irony is sufficiently obvious. I thought so too. A long silence. Kai Ashi. Lian Ho spoke slowly, choosing her words. Jade Peak has not waged war with anyone for 100 years. That is not weakness, it is policy. We observe, assess, intervene when the balance is critically disrupted. A pause. The Shadow Clan has disrupted the balance. Over 3 years, they have eliminated 4 powerful practitioners from different clans, including Dao Ashi's brother and 2 of our elders. I know. The Imperial Council is silent. Bitterness in her voice. Because there are people in the council whom the Shadow Clan pays. I know that too. Then you understand. Open conflict is impossible without a political foundation. One cannot attack one of the 9 great clans simply because there are suspicions. Evidence is needed, said Ray. And those in the council who work for the Shadows need to be neutralized. Lion Ho looked at him. You are 16. That is a problem. No, she said slowly. That is interesting. After the meeting with Lion Ho, much changed. Jade Peak began a cautious exchange of information with Clan Ashi. Not officially, through personal channels that Lion Ho was building, with the professionalism of the intelligence operative she clearly was. Ray gained access to information he hadn't had before. The Shadow Clan over the 6 years he had spent in Kai's body had indeed grown. Sohan had become the de facto head. The old clan head had died 2 years ago. The new one was weak. Sohan was the real authority. Sohan. That same one, with the merchant's smile and the accountant's eyes. Ray thought about him often. Not with hatred, that was unprofessional. With the professional interest of a man studying a subject. Sohan was intelligent, cautious. He never did anything personally, always through chains. Any action could be disputed, redirected, denied. Killing him was easy. Ray could enter any place and leave. But killing Sohan without destroying the clan's structure would only create a martyr and unite enemies against Ashi and Jade Peak. What was needed was not a killing. What was needed was annihilation. Complete, methodical, with no possibility of recovery. For that, information, connections in the council, the methods by which they operated, sources of financing, where the evidence of their actions was stored, evidence they themselves had carefully gathered on others. Sohan had a habit. Ray remembered it from 7 years of working for the clan. He collected compromising material on everyone. Didn't use it openly, kept it as insurance, recorded it carefully, stored it in several locations. That archive was the key. Find the archive. Use it against them. 17 years old. Ray began going beyond the boundaries of the clan. Not officially. Officially, the clan heir travels with an escort, with notifications, along agreed routes. Unofficially, at night, alone, in clothing bearing no clan insignia. The first sortie, a small trading town 2 hours' ride from the palace, simply watching. Seeing how the world had changed in the 6 years he had spent within the clan's walls. It had changed. The Shadow Clan was working more actively. Ray could see this from indirect signs. Too much guard around merchants who used to travel without guards. Too cautious conversations in the taverns. That particular atmosphere of a city that knows it is being watched. On the second sortie, he found what he was looking for, an informant. Not of the Shadow Clan, a former one. A man around 50 who had worked for them 10 years, then left. Living quietly, keeping an incense shop, thinking he had been forgotten. Ray found him through 3 degrees of separation. through a merchant who knew a guard who knew a former courier of the Shadow Clan. He sat across from him in the shop. The man looked at him, at the young man in plain clothing. "You're from the shadows," he said quietly, not frightened. Wearily. "No," said Ray. "I am what happens when the shadows make a mistake." Silence. "What mistake?" "They leave a survivor." The informant looked at him for a long time. "You are too young to—" "Where is Sohan's archive stored?" said Ray. Silence in the shop. The smell of incense. "How do you know about the archive?" 7 years working for the clan. In another life. The informant looked at him for one more second, then took a cup. Poured tea. Held it out. "Sit properly," he said. "This is a long conversation." The informant's name was Vi-san, not a relative of Teacher's son, simply a coincidence of names. Vi-san, over 10 years of working for the Shadow Clan, had held a position officially called Archivist of Accounts. He kept records of contracts, payments, movements. He saw much, remembered more than was worth remembering. He left when he understood where things were heading, year by year deeper into filth. He departed quietly. The clan didn't touch him. Too small to spend resources on. Ray spoke with him for 3 hours. He learned Sohan's archive existed in 3 formats. Physical. Encrypted scrolls in a secret repository in the clan's main residence. A duplicate, with 3 of Sohan's trusted men in different cities. And a mental one. Some of the most critical information Sohan kept in his own memory with protection against mental reading. The physical and duplicate, attainable. The mental, only if Sohan chose to speak. And Sohan would not choose to speak. Ray thought about this on the way back, then smiled, for the first time in a long while, quietly, to himself. Sohan would not choose to speak. But there were techniques Ray had developed over 6 years of working with the fourth source. Techniques of precise impact on Kai channels with effects found in no textbook of any clan. Sohan did not know about the fourth source. That was Sohan's problem. 18 years old. Teacher's son announced that the training was complete. Not because Ray could no longer learn, because Son said directly, "I have given you everything I could give. From here, you go on your own." Ray bowed, deeply, sincerely. "Son, teacher." The first time he addressed him that way, not officially, not formally, just that. "You have given me more than you know." Son looked at him. "Come back alive," he said. "That is the only thing I ask." "I will try." "Ray," said Son quietly. For the first time, he called him by that name. The old name. Ray stopped. "You have lived 2 lives," said Son. "Don't forget that the second one is yours. The first operation. Small. A test. One of the 3 keepers of Sohan's duplicate archive. A merchant in a port city. Not a practitioner. An ordinary man who was paid to keep an encrypted box and to stay silent. Ray entered the city in the evening, alone. No escort, no weapons. Weapons had been built into his body over 8 years of training. He found the merchant, a separate house, good security for a merchant, 4 men at the gates. No practitioners, just hired hands. At night. Ray moved across the rooftops. The silent step technique, reworked for the fourth source, had become qualitatively different. Not simply quiet movement, almost an absence of presence, Kai compressed to a minimum, heat signature reduced, sound, 0. The 4 at the gates felt nothing. The guard at the inner door sensed something at the edge of his perception, a second before Ray appeared beside him. A second wasn't enough. A strike to the Kai point on the neck, consciousness went out softly, without pain, without noise. The merchant was asleep. Ray found the hiding place in 20 minutes. Not by the method of searching, by the method of logic. The merchant was paid for storage. The merchant feared discovery, which meant he hadn't hidden it in the house, too obvious. In the house, but not in the house. A false bottom, space between the walls, under the foundation floor. Under the foundation floor in the cellar. A forged box with 2 locks. He took it, left the same way. The 4 at the gates were still standing, talking about something. They noticed neither arrival nor departure. The next day, the merchant discovered the loss. Vi's son through his channels informed Ray. The merchant was in a panic. had contacted the Shadow Clan. The clan was alarmed. Good. Let them worry. Ray opened the box. The locks were complex, artifactual, requiring an hour's work with the fine Kai of the fourth source. Inside, scrolls, encrypted. The Shadow Clan's cipher, Ray knew it. 7 years of work. He read. 3 hours. Afterward, he sat quietly. The scrolls contained much. Contracts for eliminations, names, dates, sums. Among the names, Dao Ashi's brother, 2 elders of Jade Peak, and 12 more names over the past 3 years. Practitioners from different clans of varying levels. And the names of people in the Imperial Council whom the Shadow Clan paid. 4 names. 4 counselors out of 12. A third of the council. Ray looked at the scroll, then made a copy. Carefully, word for word. The original, to Dao Ashi. The copy, to Lion Ho through her channel. Ray traveled alone on horseback, in the clothing of a wandering merchant. Half a day before the city, he sensed surveillance. Not crude, subtle. One person, good concealment. Void level, which meant the Shadow Clan was already reacting to the theft of the first box. Ray continued writing as if nothing were amiss, thinking. 1 pursuer, reconnaissance, not elimination. They want to know who, which means they had picked up the trail from the first city and were following the route. Clever. Ray turned off the road into a strip of woodland, officially for a rest stop. He unhitched his horse at a stream, built a small fire, took out food. He waited. The pursuer stopped at the edge of the woodland, watching. Ray ate, calmly, without hurrying. After 20 minutes, the pursuer decided the target didn't know he was being followed and moved closer. A professional. He moved quietly, maintained distance, but a mistake. He thought void level was sufficient for covert observation of a merchant. Ray sensed him at 30 meters. At 20, he assessed the position. At 10, he understood the pursuer had decided to observe rather than eliminate. He stood up, turned around. "Come here," he said into the darkness between the trees. Silence. Then, from the darkness emerged a man around 30. Medium height, in clothing bearing no clan insignia. His face, professionally neutral. He looked at Ray. "An 18-year-old boy," he said. Not contemptuously, assessingly. "Incorrect information," said Ray. "I am 18 years old with the experience of 1 life on top of that." The pursuer didn't understand the reference. It didn't matter. "You took the box from Port Nan." "Yes. The Shadow Clan wants to know who you are." "The Shadow Clan will soon find out," said Ray, "but not from you." The pursuer reacted quickly. A professional. A lunge. 2 steps. A strike to the body with Kai concentration, void level, enough to break the ribs of an ordinary man. Ray stepped left. Didn't jump. Stepped, minimal movement. The fist passed 2 centimeters from his side. He caught the wrist. A technique he had developed for the fourth source, the point lock. Fine Kai passes through the palm into the opponent's wrist channel and blocks the flow of his own Kai. Doesn't destroy, blocks. Complete immobility. The pursuer froze. He could physically move, but the ki wasn't flowing, like a fighter without strength. He looked at Ray. "Who are you?" he asked. For the first time, not neutrally, with that tone that comes when a professional encounters something beyond his experience. "Tell Sohan," said Ray, "that the one he left to die on the Sarim Pass has returned." A pause. "What?" "He'll understand." He released the block, stepped back to his horse. "I'll take the second box tomorrow," said Ray without turning around. "You can notify Sohan in advance." He mounted the horse, rode on. Behind him, the pursuer stood and watched. He took the second box. The next day, the practitioner keeper knew they were coming. Ray had deliberately warned him through the pursuer. 4 guards at the void level were waiting. Ray entered through the front door. Not because he couldn't do otherwise, because he wanted them to see. So they would report it. So Sohan would begin to understand what was happening. A fight in the corridor of the house. 4 against 1. First, an attack from the right flank, a spear with Kai reinforcement. Ray dodged under the trajectory and struck the base of the collarbone. Not hard, precise. The first was out with a numb right side. Second and third, simultaneously a pincer, horizontal. Ray didn't jump sideways. He jumped up, pushed off the wall, flew over them, landed between the second and third. An elbow strike backward, the second. A knee strike forward, the third. Both remained standing but bent double. The fourth, the most cautious, kept his distance. High void level, the best of the four. He waited. Ray stopped. Looked at him. "Where is the keeper?" he asked. The fourth didn't answer. He attacked. A series of 7 strikes with alternating vectors. A good technique, fast. Ray caught the first 3 on crossed forearms. The Kai armor of the fourth source held. The fourth strike he caught at the wrist. The fifth, sixth, seventh didn't land. Position lost. Point lock. The fourth froze. 37 seconds. Ray found the hiding place himself. The practitioner keeper had fled through the back exit, leaving the box. He took it. Left. Dao Ashi received the first scroll and immediately convened a secret council with the allied clans. Lion Ho of Jade Peak received the copy and began working with those in the Imperial Council who had not yet been bought by the Shadow Clan. 8 of 12. A sufficient majority. The mechanism began to work. Ray observed this from the side. He thought about the third box with the third keeper he had not yet found. Thought about Sohan, who, by this time, had already received the message from the pursuer. Thought about what Sohan would do. The answer came in 3 days. A man came to Ray's chambers. Not a servant. A stranger. Young, unremarkable, with an envelope bearing no seal. Ray had sensed him while he was still in the corridor. He met him at the door. "From whom?" he asked. "From a man who wishes to speak," said the messenger. Inside the envelope, 1 line. Sarim Pass? In 7 days. One-on-one. SS. Sohan. Ray held the letter. Looked at the line. Sohan was inviting him to a meeting at the place where 6 years ago he had killed him in his past life. The symbolism was intentional. Sohan had always liked symbolism. One-on-one. Meaning without armies, without guilds, without the council. Ray thought for 3 minutes. Then sat down, took paper, wrote a reply. "I will be there." He gave it to the messenger. Dao Ashi found out within the hour from the guards who had seen the messenger. He came to Ray. "No," he said shortly. "This is not up for discussion. You are my son." "I am the person who must finish this," said Ray, not rudely, calmly. "Dao, father. The political part is set in motion. The scrolls are with you. With Jade Peak, within a week they will be with the council. Sohan has nowhere to go." A pause. "But he will not surrender through political means. Such men do not surrender." He looked at Dao. "He wants to meet one-on-one because this is his last chance. To kill me and take back the scrolls. Exactly why? Exactly why I will go," said Ray. "Because this is his last chance. And my first." Silence. Dao Ashi stood and looked at his 18-year-old son. "His level," he said at last. "The abyss." A pause. "Mine. The threshold of the abyss and the first layer of the fourth source." Another pause. "In my past life, I was at the abyss level and yielded to 42. Now I am one-on-one against one. That is different mathematics. He won't come alone." "He will," said Ray. "Because if he doesn't come alone, he admits that he is afraid. And Sohan cannot afford to be afraid. His power rests on a reputation for fearlessness." A long silence. "Take Gaion," said Dao at last. "At least one man." "No! Kai!" "Ray," he said quietly. Dao fell silent. "Ray," he repeated, for the first time accepting it. "Come back. I will try." 7 days. Ray did not spend them preparing for the battle. He was ready for the battle. He spent them doing everything that needed to be done in case he didn't return. The third scroll he found through Vai Son. It was kept by a moneylender in a northern city. He sent Gaion, taken without a fight. The keeper surrendered it himself when he understood the game was over. All 3 scrolls, with Dao, with Lion Ho, with 3 trusted archivists of the council, in 5 locations, impossible to destroy. The political mechanism was set in motion and could not be stopped. All that remained was the meeting. Sareem Pass. Altitude 2,000 meters. Ray went up an hour before the appointed time. He looked around. The same place. He hadn't been here in 6 years, but he remembered every stone. A killer's memory does not forget places. Here was where Sohan stood when he spoke. From here emerged the archer with the artifactual arrow. Here was the drop from which he had jumped. 300 meters down. Now he stood at the edge and looked down. The forest. The same forest. "A beautiful view," said a voice from behind. Ray didn't turn around immediately. He waited a second, then turned slowly. Sohan. 6 years had changed him. He had become clan head. This was visible in how he stood, in how he looked. Power always changes posture. The face, older. The merchant's smile, the same. The accountant's eyes, the same. He looked at Ray. "Young," said Sohan. "Very young. But the eyes," a pause, "the eyes I remember." "You haven't been sleeping well these past 3 years." "These past 3 months," Sohan corrected, "since the boxes began disappearing." 3 months is little. It should be worse." The smile didn't disappear. "Ray." He used the name. He knew it. Of course he knew it. He had received the report from the pursuer. "You were reborn in the body of the Ashi heir. Is that coincidence or not?" "I don't know yet." An honest answer. Sohan took a step forward. "You know you cannot defeat me. Abyss level against..." "The first layer of the 4th source," said Ray. Sohan stopped. Silence. "The 4th source," he repeated slowly. "In the body of Kai Ashi." A pause. "Interesting. I thought you knew, since you chose this body as the place where your instrument was to be reborn." Now the silence was different. Longer. "What do you mean?" said Sohan. For the first time, the smile became slightly less certain. "The Shadow Clan created the conditions deliberately," said Ray. 3 years, 7 S-rank dungeons. "No, that's a different world," he corrected himself. 7 operations, specific conditions, high mortality, surviving practitioner, conditions for the transfer of something. You're raving." "No." Ray looked directly. "Sohan. You killed me deliberately. Not because you were afraid, because I needed to die under specific conditions in order to be reborn in a specific body with a specific potential." A pause. "Who hired you for this?" A long silence. The wind on the pass. Strong, cold. Sohan's smile disappeared. For the first time in all the years Ray had known him. "You are smarter than I thought," said Sohan quietly. "But that doesn't change what will happen now?" "No," Ray agreed. "It doesn't." Sohan attacked first. Abyss level is a force that changes the air around it when Kai is released. Not a metaphor, literally. Pressure in a wave, the stones at his feet lifted and scattered. Ray stood. He absorbed the pressure, not with a shield, with his body. The 4th source, at full opening of the 1st layer, gave the ability to convert incoming ki energy. Not into a shield, not into a reflection, into his own reserve. Sohan felt it. His steps slowed. "What?" Ray moved. Not directly, in an arc, fast, with the speed the young body with the 4th source gave him. In his past life, he hadn't had such speed. 32 years against 18 in a body with superior potential. First strike. To Sohan's shoulder. Precise, with fine Kai. Sohan caught it on his defense. Good Abyss-level defense, the strike didn't pass fully. But Ray felt the weak point. The right side. An old injury. The shoulder joint. Healed, but not completely. He noted it. Sohan answered. A series of strikes, fast, with varying Kai level in each. 5 strikes of differing strength. The first weak to test the defense, the second medium to create pressure, the third strong to break through. Ray knew this technique. He had developed it. 8 years ago in his past life, and had passed it to the Shadow Clan as part of his work. Sohan was striking him with his own technique. "You taught me," said Sohan. The first, second strike, Ray moved aside. 10 years ago, a young practitioner who came to the clan and brought techniques no one else had. The third strike Ray caught, converted it. "I know," said Ray. "Everything the Shadow Clan knows in battle, you created." "Yes." "Which means you know our every technique?" "To the last one." Then, Sohan changed tactics sharply, without warning. He shifted from striking techniques to grappling. Abyss level and grappling technique is a pressure that breaks the bones of void level practitioners. Ray almost didn't expect it. Almost. Because the point lock he himself had created worked precisely through a wrist grip. And Sohan applied a modified version. A grip on Ray's right wrist. Kai pressure. Ray felt the bone cracking. Didn't break. Held. Converted part of the pressure. But it hurt. For the first time in the fight. He answered with his left. An open palm strike to Sohan's chest. Not a power strike. Precise. To the center of the sternum to the main key channel. Sohan wheezed, released the grip. Both stepped back. They looked at each other. They breathed. "The fourth source," said Sohan. "Conversion of incoming energy. That is impossible for the Abyss level." "The fourth source is not the Abyss level," said Ray. "What is it? What comes next?" Silence. Sohan looked at him. In the accountant's eyes. For the first time, something different. Not calculation, not the merchant's smile. Understanding. "You," said Sohan quietly. "You are what all of this was for." A pause. "Not an instrument. You are the goal." "Whose?" asked Ray. "I don't know," said Sohan. "For the first time, honestly, I swear I don't know. I was given a task, create the conditions. Paid enough not to ask questions." He looked directly. "Who stands behind this?" "I don't know." "You're lying." "No." His voice was different. Tired. "Ray, I have lost. The scrolls are with the council. Clan Ashi and Jade Peak have united. Politically, I am finished." A pause. "I didn't come here to win. I came to tell you. Be careful. The one who hired me is not a clan. Not one of the 9. He looked. "Something else?" Ray stood. "The wind on the pass." "What else?" "I don't know what to call it." Sohan spoke slowly. "A voice. Contact through an artifact. I never saw a face, simply a task and payment." A pause. "But the power behind that voice was a power that people do not possess." Silence. "Why are you telling me this?" asked Ray. "Because," Sohan smirked. Without the merchant's smile, simply a smirk. "Because if that voice was creating you as an instrument, sooner or later it will come for the instrument." He looked. "And it's better that you are ready." Ray returned in 3 days. Alone. Alive? Sohan, also alive. Ray had left him on the pass with his Kai channels blocked for a week. By the time they unblocked, the council would have already made its decision. The Shadow Clan, without political protection, without the archive, with evidence against them. Dao met him at the gates. He looked at his son. At the right wrist, bandaged, at the tired face. "Is it finished?" he asked. "Politically, yes," said Ray. "The Shadow Clan will be dissolved by council decision within a month. And otherwise." Ray thought about how to answer. "No," he said at last. "Not finished." Dao looked at him questioningly. "Someone was creating me, deliberately. A voice without a face that hired Sohan." Ray spoke evenly. "I am not a tool of someone else's plan. What do you intend to do?" "Find them. Simply. Understand. And decide for myself what to do about it." Dao Ashi stood. He looked at his 18-year-old son who had returned from the pass where he had once died. "Good," he said at last. "Then first, eat." Ray almost smiled. "Good." That night, Ray sat alone in the garden. He looked at the sky, thought about the voice without a face, about Sohan, who for the first time in all the time he had known him had spoken honestly. About the fact that beyond the revenge he had considered the final point, there was a new horizon. Thought about Sun, who had said, "Don't forget that the second life is yours." Thought about Dao, who had said, "Come back." Thought that 18 years was a beginning. The first layer of the fourth source open. 3 layers ahead. The absolute level considered theoretical. A voice without a face with a power that people do not possess. A long road. But his road. Not someone else's plan, not someone else's instrument. His road. He took a knife, small, always with him. Looked at the blade, his reflection in the metal. An 18-year-old face with eyes that had seen 2 lives. He put away the knife, stood up, went to sleep. The Shadow Clan was officially dissolved 31 days later. The Imperial Council, 8 votes out of 12. The 4 bought counselors tried to block the decision, but Lian Ho had worked carefully. A week before the vote, each of the 4 received a personal letter with the contents of the scrolls pertaining to them personally. Letters from an unknown sender, unsigned. All 4 abstained. Abstention with 8 votes against, same as agreement. The Shadow Clan was stripped of its official status as a great clan. Its lands placed under council administration. Practitioners, free, but all contracts and operations declared illegal with demands for compensation. Sohan disappeared. Ray wasn't surprised. Such men know how to disappear. He himself had taught them how. Dao Ashi celebrated modestly by the standards of a great clan. A dinner for the elders, toasts to the brother who had finally been avenged, the quiet satisfaction of people who had waited 3 years. Ray sat at the table and ate, listened to the conversations. The elders discussed the redistribution of the Shadow Clan's lands. Who would receive the eastern trade route? Who the mountain fortresses in the north? Dao listened, not rushing to make decisions. A correct instinct. Ray looked at all of this and thought not about the lands. He thought about Sohan, about what he had said on the pass. A voice. Contact through an artifact. A power that people do not possess. 12 days had passed since the pass. Ray had received no sign, no contact, no voice. Either the voice was waiting, or the voice was watching. Both options required preparation. After dinner, Lian Ho stayed behind. She had been a guest in Clan Ashi for 10 days, officially to finalize the alliance treaty between Jade Peak and Ashi. Unofficially, Ray understood she was studying him. A professional studying another professional, delicately, methodically, without haste. He allowed it, partially. They walked out into the garden together. It happened on its own. No one arranged it specially. They simply both ended up at the pond at the same time after the elders had dispersed. Sohan has disappeared, said Lian Ho. I know. You aren't looking for him. Not yet. She looked at the reflection of the moon in the pond. Why? Because he will say what he already said Ray. A voice without a face. Artifactual contact. An employer he never saw. A pause. Chasing Sohan now is a waste of time. The employer is what needs to be found. Do you have a direction? An idea, Ray corrected. Not a direction. What idea? Ray thought for a second. Lian Ho had earned trust. Not complete. Complete trust he gave to no one except Teacher Sun and partly Dao, but sufficient. The artifact through which the employer contacted Sohan, he said. Such artifacts are not made in clan workshops. This is beyond the level of even the best masters of Jade Peak. He looked at the pond. This is something older. Pre-clan period, said Lian Ho slowly. Possibly. Relics of the era before? She spoke quietly. Most consider them legends. Most haven't worked with Kai for 20 years, said Ray. The first layer of the fourth source gives a sense of energy that isn't present in standard techniques. A pause. Something similar is described in old texts as primal Kai. It precedes the standard. Lian Ho was silent for a long time. In the archive of Jade Peak, she said at last, there is a restricted section. Texts from the pre-clan period, most are encrypted. A pause. We have never fully deciphered them. I want to look. Jade Peak is a closed clan. I know. Silence. Give me time to speak with the head, said Lian Ho. How long? A month? Good. The answer came before the month was out. On the 15th night after the conversation in the garden, Ray woke up. Not from a sound, from a sensation. Something in the room had changed. Not a person. He would have sensed a person at 30 meters. Something else. Fine. Unfamiliar. With that key frequency that didn't match any technique he knew. He opened his eyes. On the table, an artifact. Small. A round black stone the size of a fist with red veins inside that pulsed slowly. Ray lay and looked at it, then stood up, slowly, without sudden movements. He approached the table. The stone pulsed, the red veins flaring and fading with a rhythm that was not random. Regular. Like breathing, Ray reached out his hand. He felt the key. Yes, that very same. Primal. Older than the standard. Like the relationship between a river and an ocean. Standard key was the river. What emanated from the stone was the ocean. He touched it. At last, said a voice. Ray didn't pull his hand away. He held the stone. Waited. The voice was inside. Not in his head like a thought. Deeper. As if something was speaking from a level below words. I waited a long time, the voice continued. You turned out to be a stubborn vessel. You created the conditions for my rebirth, said Ray aloud. Quietly, so as not to wake the palace. Who are you? Names don't matter. What matters is the why. Then, the why. A pause. You know about the fourth source. You know what it gives. Conversion, precision, the potential of the absolute. The voice spoke unhurriedly. But you don't know why it exists? Tell me. The fourth source is not a natural mutation. It is a legacy, left deliberately, for a specific purpose. What purpose? A long pause. The red veins in the stone flared brighter. The world of Sangha is dying, slowly. You don't see it. Too young in this life and too occupied with revenge in the last. But the process has been underway for 3 centuries. The source of ki is running dry. A pause. In 100 years, practitioners will be gone. Not because people will become weaker, because there will be no more ki. Ray stood and held the stone. The source of ki is running dry, he repeated. What does that mean? Ki does not arise on its own. It comes from a point. From the primary source. In the world of Sangha, there is a place, the primal pillar. The point from which 3,000 years ago the first Kai arose and began to spread. Every practitioner in every clan uses a reflection of that point. The voice became quieter. The pillar is damaged. 3 centuries ago. Deliberately. By whom? That is a long conversation. Not for one night. Then what do you need from me? Only a practitioner of the fourth source can enter the pillar. Only primal Kai is compatible with its structure. Only a vessel of the fourth source can repair the damage. A pause. You are the only vessel of the fourth source in 300 years, Ray thought. You created me for this. I did not create. I created conditions under which you could appear. The difference is important. Something like a smirk in the voice. I do not control birth and rebirth. I only set conditions. What happens within them is always a question for the vessel. Sohan said, you hired him to kill me. No. I hired him to create conditions. The death of an abyss-level practitioner in a state of extreme tension creates a certain imprint. An imprint which, with the right rebirth, activates the fourth source in the new body. A pause. You needed to die in battle, not from illness, not by accident. In battle under extreme circumstances. You killed me. Technically, Sohan killed you. I created the conditions under which Sohan decided to do it. Again that smirk. Once more. The difference is important. Ray was silent. The stone in his hand was warm. It pulsed evenly like a heart. I am not a tool, he said at last. I know. I will do what I consider necessary. Not what you tell me. I know, the voice repeated. That is precisely why you are suitable. A tool cannot enter the pillar. A person who makes his own decisions is what is needed. Where is the pillar? A long pause. That is the first right question. The voice became slightly different. Not warmer, but closer. Far. The journey will take years. You are not ready now. The first layer of the fourth source is a beginning. At minimum, the third is needed. And the fourth? The fourth is preferable, said the voice. But honestly, I don't know whether a vessel will survive the opening of the fourth layer. No one has tried. Encouraging. I appreciate that you don't panic. Panic is a waste of time, said Ray. Silence. Then the voice said, quieter than before, with a tone Ray had not expected to hear from a being with power exceeding human. In your first life, you were a tool. In your second, you choose for yourself who to be. That is not coincidence. A pause. Keep the stone. When you are ready for the next conversation, simply take it in your hand. The red veins went dark. The stone went cold. Ordinary in appearance. Black, matte. Only if you held it in your hand and knew what to look for could you feel that deep underlying pulse. Ray set the stone on the table, sat on the bed, thought for a long time. Outside the window, pre-dawn darkness. The garden was silent. The palace slept. The source of Kai is running dry. The primal pillar is damaged. The only vessel of the fourth source in 300 years. Ray, a practitioner who had spent his first life as a killer on other people's orders. And now again someone was setting a task before him. The difference was that this time he could refuse. The voice itself had said, a tool won't do. A person who decides for himself is what is needed, which means the right to refuse exists, which means the right to his own terms exists as well. He lay down, closed his eyes. Tomorrow, first he would speak with Teacher Sun, then with Dao, then decide. In the morning he called Sun and Dao, not to the study, to the garden, the same pond, the same bench, a place that for some reason had become the place of important conversations. He told them everything, without omissions. The stone, the voice, the primal pillar, the fourth source and its purpose. 3 centuries of Kai running dry. Sun listened without moving. Dao at first looked at the pond, then at Ray. The silence after Ray finished lasted a long time. Do you believe the voice? Asked Sun. I believe it is telling the truth, said Ray. I don't believe it is telling all the truth. The difference is significant. The voice says the goal is to restore the pillar, but it doesn't say what it will gain from this itself. Everyone has a motive. It does too. Yes? Dao spoke for the first time. The source of Qi is running dry. If this is true, then in 100 years the world of Sangha will have no practitioners. He spoke evenly, reasoning it through. All 9 clans will disappear. There will be no wars, no guilds, nothing that exists now, said Ray. You are 18, I know. Even if you start now, years of training to the 3rd layer. Then the journey to the pillar. Dao spoke without emotion. He was analyzing. That is a lifetime. An entire lifetime. Possibly. You understand this? I understand. A long silence. Then Dao stood up. He walked. Stopped with his back to the pond and his face to Ray. Then what do you need from me? Resources, said Ray. Clan Ashi is wealthy. I need access to archives from the pre-clan period. I need people who can gather information in different places without questions. I need freedom of movement when the time comes to travel. All of that is at your disposal. And one thing more. Speak. I don't want the elders to know. Not because I don't trust them. Because if the information reaches other clans before the right moment, the voice will fall silent, and I will lose the only source. A pause. 3 people know. You, Sun. And in a week, Lion Ho. No one else? Dao looked at him. Good. One more thing, said Ray. More. You said I am your son regardless of my past life. Ray spoke slowly, choosing his words. I need to know. You understand that the 2nd layer of the 4th source is the abyss level. The 3rd is above the abyss. The 4th, unknown. A pause. I will become someone I was not even in my past life. This will change me, possibly greatly. Dao looked for a long time. You are worried I won't accept you as such. I am worried you won't be prepared. Silence. Then Dao Ashi, for the first time in all the years Ray had known him, placed his hand on his son's shoulder. Not firmly, simply placed it. I waited for you 3 days on that pass, he said quietly. I stood and waited. He removed his hand. I will be prepared. Lion Ho heard everything 3 days later. She listened without moving, then was silent for a long time. The Jade Peak Archives, she said at last. Yes. I will take you there personally, she said. Not a question, a decision. In a month. When the alliance treaty has been officially signed. Good. Kai. She called him that, unlike Sun and Dao, who sometimes said Ray. The source has been running dry for 3 centuries, which means some pre-clan texts may contain information about it, before the drying became noticeable. She looked at him. If we find documentary confirmation, it changes the conversation with the voice. You will come with information and not only questions. Exactly, said Ray. You had thought of this? From the first morning after the conversation. Lian Ho looked at him. You are 18 years old, she said. Not for the first time already. But now, without that tone from before, simply a statement. I know, said Ray. That is not an obstacle. It is a resource. She spoke evenly. The voice waited 300 years. It chose an 18-year-old vessel with an entire life ahead. A pause, which means time is what is needed. And time you have. 2 months after the conversation with the voice, Ray worked, not on plans and strategies, on himself. The first layer of the 4th source had opened at 16. Now he was 18. 2 years of work had given good control over the first layer, but the second wouldn't open. Sun explained why, or tried to. The first layer opens from potential, he said. It was in you from the beginning. It only needed to be found. A pause. The second layer is different. It doesn't open from training or from searching. It opens from understanding. What understanding? I don't know. Honestly, the texts about the 4th source that I have read are fragmentary, but everywhere one thing is written. Each layer opens not from strength, from awareness. Ray thought about this. The first layer, conversion, turning the external into the internal. I take from the world. The second layer, what is the opposite? Not to take, to give. Not to convert the incoming, to project from within. Not a shield that absorbs, a force that emanates. Ray felt the understanding entering, not as a thought but as a physical sensation. Something deep, beyond words. In the first life he had worked for others on their orders. Strength was spent on someone else's ends. In this life, for the first time there was a why. The pillar, the world, the Kai that was disappearing. Not on someone's orders, on his own decision. A force that emanates from one's own center towards something greater than oneself. The second layer blazed open, not gradually, all at once, as if it had been waiting for precisely this. A wave of warmth from the center of his chest in all directions. Ray felt the ki become different, still finer, still deeper. As if he had removed yet another layer of something he hadn't noticed as a limitation. The answer came unexpectedly. Not in meditation, not in battle. In a conversation with Dao. They were sitting after dinner, a quiet evening, no elders, no guests. Dao was reading reports. Ray was looking out the window. Ray, said Dao, without looking up from the papers. Yes, did you ever think? He stopped. Speak. In your past life, you worked alone. A pause. What was that like? Ray thought. Simpler, he said. Only your own decision. Only your own responsibility, no obligations to others, and lonely. I didn't think about it then, and now. Now, yes, slowly. Lonely. Dao set down the papers, looked at him. Kayashi, the first name. You carry 2 lives within you. the experience of a killer and the experience of a son. He spoke quietly. The first taught you how to survive. The second, why? Ray looked at him. Something clicked. Not a metaphor. Physically, somewhere deep, at a level below the body, something shifted, like a key in a lock. He stood up sharply. "Wait," he said. He went out into the corridor, found an empty room, sat in meditation. He looked inward. The first layer, active, glowing quietly as always. Below it the second, closed, dark. Not from strength, from understanding. Tao had said, the first life taught how to survive. The second, why? Ray sat and thought about what this meant for Kai. First layer, conversion. Turning the external into the internal. I take from the world. Second layer, what is the opposite? Not to take, to give. Not to convert the incoming, to project from within. Not a shield that absorbs, a force that emanates. Ray felt the understanding entering, not as a thought, but as a physical sensation, something deep, beyond words. In the first life, he had worked for others on their orders. Strength was spent on someone else's ends. In this life, for the first time, there was a why. The pillar, the world, the key that was disappearing. Not on someone's orders, on his own decision. A force that emanates from one's own center towards something greater than oneself. The second layer blazed open, not gradually, all at once, as if it had been waiting for precisely this. A wave of warmth from the center of his chest in all directions. Ray felt the Kai become different, still finer, still deeper. As if he had removed yet another layer of something he hadn't noticed as a limitation. The second layer of the fourth source is open, said the voice in the stone. The stone lay in his pocket. Ray didn't hold it in his hand, he simply carried it with him. Faster than expected, the voice added. Leave, said Ray. The voice fell silent. He returned to Tao. Tao looked at him. Had something changed in his face? What happened? He asked. The second layer, said Ray. Tao didn't understand the significance immediately. Then he did. Because of our conversation. Because of what you said. A long silence. I'm glad, said Tao simply. So am I, said Ray. A pause. Sit down and finish eating, said Tao, and returned to his papers. Ray sat down. Finished eating. Outside the window it was growing dark. In the garden a night cricket sang. An ordinary evening. Extraordinary only within. A month later they set out. A small delegation from Clan Ashi to the allied Clan Jade Peak. Officially, a protocol visit following the signing of the Alliance Treaty. 6 guards, 2 of Tao's advisors for trade negotiations, Ray. Jade Peak was situated in the northern mountains. 3 days' journey on horseback through provinces Ray had not seen in this life. He rode and watched. The provinces lived, trade, fields, small cities. Practitioners from minor clans patrolled the roads, charged fees for protection. Ordinary life in the world of Sangha. And something underlying. Ray noticed it now, with the second layer open. The key in the air was thinner than it should be. Not greatly. Not enough for an ordinary practitioner to feel. But thinner. 3 centuries of drying. Not a catastrophe yet. But the process was underway. He told Lion Ho at the rest stop on the 3rd day. She nodded. She had expected him to say it. I have felt it for 5 years, she said. But I thought it was my perception. Age. A pause. Now I understand it isn't. Other high-level practitioners feel it. Some. They say nothing. She looked at the mountains ahead. It's frightening to speak aloud about a world that is dying. It's more frightening to stay silent. Yes, she agreed. The Jade Peak clan's residence. In the mountains, at an altitude of 1,500 meters. White walls of local stone, towers, hanging gardens. Beautiful. Functionally beautiful, not ostentatiously. The clan head, Wei Lun. A man around 60, high void level, with the gaze of someone who had seen much and drawn conclusions. He received the delegation officially, then invited Ray separately. A small study, tea, no guards. Lion Ho told me, said Wei Lun, a little. How little? Enough to open the archive. Ray nodded. Head Wei, do you feel the drying of Kai? For 20 years. Simply, I tried to study it. Found nothing that would explain the cause. He looked at Ray. You think the explanation is in the pre-clan period archive? I think yes. Then let's go. The pre-clan period archive was on the lower level of the main tower. Underground, behind 3 doors with artifactual locks. A large space, walls of a special preserving stone, shelves from floor to ceiling, scrolls, books, tablets of metal and stone. Ray stood at the entrance and looked. How much of this is undeciphered? He asked. About a third, said Wei Lun. The cipher doesn't yield to standard methods. A pause. Our best archivists worked on it for 50 years. Ray entered, took the first scroll, looked at the cipher. The second layer of the fourth source gave not only strength in battle, it gave perception of fine structures. The pre-clan period cipher was built not on logic but on energy patterns. Each symbol carried within it a tiny key imprint. It was read not with the eyes, with perception. Ray read, slowly at first, then faster as he grew accustomed to the patterns. Wei Lun stood at the entrance, watching. Lion Ho beside Ray. Quiet. 1 hour. 2. 3. Ray read. By evening, he found it. Not everything. Part of it. But the key. The text had been written by someone who called himself the Keeper of the First Flow. Dating. 3 centuries ago, give or take a few years. Precisely at the time when, according to the voice, the damage had occurred. He read aloud. Lion Ho and Wei Lun listened. The pillar was breached deliberately. 3 practitioners at a level above the abyss, a level that has no name in current classification, entered the primal pillar with the aim of extracting a portion of primal Kai. The reason is unknown. The motive, presumably personal immortality. Primal Ki, when absorbed by a certain method, grants indefinite extension of life. A pause. The breaching of the pillar created damage in its structure. Primal Ki began to flow out slowly. The 3 practitioners absorbed a portion, a significant portion. The rest dissipates into space. Another pause. The 3 practitioners disappeared afterward. Presumably, they departed beyond the bounds of the world of Sangha. The exact direction is unknown. The primal pillar continues to leak. By my calculations, in 3 to 4 centuries, the source will run dry completely. Practitioners will vanish. The world of Sangha will change irreversibly. The only solution is to close the damage. For this, a vessel of primal Ki is needed. The 4th source is the closest analog in human nature. Only such a practitioner can enter the pillar and work with its structure from within. I attempted to create a vessel. It did not succeed. The 4th source is not transmitted through training. Only through birth. And only under certain conditions. I leave this text for those who come after. If someone is reading this, it means the 4th source has appeared. It means there is a chance. Ray fell silent. Silence in the archive. The Keeper of the First Flow, said Wei Lun slowly. That name exists in the legends of the pre-clan period. A pause. They say he lived for several centuries, then disappeared. Or became a voice without a body, said Ray. Silence. You think the voice that contacted through the stone is him, said Lion Ho. Possibly. Ray looked at the scroll, or someone who came after him with the same goals. A pause. It doesn't matter who. What matters is that the motive is now clear. The voice was not creating me as an instrument for personal gain. It was creating an instrument for restoring the pillar. Does that make it a more or less reliable ally? Asked Lion Ho. Ray thought. More, he said. But its motive is still its motive. My decision is my decision. That evening, Ray sat alone in the quarters that had been prepared for him. The stone on the table. He took it in his hand. Keeper of the First Flow, he said. A pause. You found the text? Yes. Quickly. The second layer helps with reading your cipher. Not mine. The one who wrote it. A pause. You are right. I am not him. I came later. But the goal is the same. The three who breached the pillar. Are they alive? A long silence. Yes. Where? That is the third part of the conversation. Not today. When? When the third layer opens. The voice became quieter. Ray. The three practitioners who breached the pillar. They absorbed primal Kai. 3 centuries ago. They are not merely alive. They are stronger than anything existing in the world of Sangha now. Significantly stronger. A pause. To reach the pillar, one must pass through them. Pass through or defeat. You'll figure that out when the time comes. A typical answer. An honest one, said the voice. I don't know how you will manage. I only know that you must, and that you can. Where does such certainty come from? Because I spent 3 centuries creating conditions. I saw hundreds of people who could have become vessels. No one was suitable, quietly. You are the first who survived not because you were protected or lucky, but because of yourself. Ray held the stone. He thought about Sarim Pass, about the ambush of 42, about the jump from the drop into the darkness. He thought about the child's bed in the chambers of Clan Ashi, about Teacher Sun who had asked, "Who are you?" About Dao, who had placed his hand on his shoulder and said, "I will be prepared." He thought about Lion Ho, who had said, "There's nothing terrible about being 18 years old." He thought that in the first life the road had been straight. Killer, contracts, strength, death. In this life the road led somewhere he couldn't yet see. Beyond 3 centuries of drying. Beyond 3 practitioners who had consumed the primal light of the world. Beyond the pillar that needed to be repaired. A long road. Not his choice that it existed. His choice to walk it. He set the stone on the table. Stood up, walked to the window. The mountains of Jade Peak in the night. Dark silhouettes against a starry sky. Tall, silent. Beyond them, other mountains. Beyond those, another world. The pillar. The 3. "All right," he said into the darkness. No one answered. But somewhere in the stone on the table, the red veins flared once.